Question: how would you survive in hardcore Minecraft for 100 days, stuck on an island? And would you be able to transform this area into the ultimate base with very limited resources? Because guess what? I did it. Alright, so I started this 100 days by finding a new block, little leaf, alright? And after experimenting with it for a while, I was, no, this is not it, right? So I just threw it away. I then did what every single one of us does at the start of the game. I collected some wood, and with this wood, I made a crafting table. Surprise! And then I made a wooden pickaxe. And with this pickaxe, I went to the side of the island and I collected some stone. Now, when I was collecting some stone, I also found coal. That's right, which was pretty nice actually. And once I had enough stone, I went back and I made a whole bunch of stone tools, okay? The whole shebang. So it was a pretty good start. I then realized that I had a whole island for myself. So I decided I was going to explore. I found sheep, which by the way, I was about to kill, and I was like, wait, I need them to survive, alright? So I left them alone. I found a chicken and sugarcane, which I promptly propagated. That's a good word. I propagated on the island. Now, I've seen a couple of these videos, alright? So I went fishing because it's a good food source at the start of the game. And then I was like, oh, what is that? It's an underwater cave. What if I go explore it? By the way, ignore the fact that I already have doors, alright? Let's pretend that this was very spontaneous, okay? For the video. Anyway, I went underwater and I got as much iron as I could. But it was almost nighttime, so I made a furnace, I placed it, I smelted some iron, I made some shears, I collected some wool, I collected more wool, I made a bed, I placed it, and I slept. Anyway, I started day 2 by making another furnace and cooking all the fish that I had got on day 1, okay? I then was like, you know what? I've explored the island. Let me now explore the... Ignore the fact that I failed the button, right? Let me now explore the ocean. And I found a shipwreck. Right away, I was like, oh, damn, like, pretty cool. But the chest didn't really have anything good, okay? It had some moss and coal and yeah, whatever. I got it. I started losing hearts because I was drowning. And then I was like, wait. This is spruce. This is spruce. I'm going to collect as much as I can because, you know, I'm living on an island, so there's no other way of getting it. And I got a total of 7 blocks, okay? Pretty hyped. I was like, damn, great, nice. Let me go find another shipwreck, okay? Now, after a while, I finally found one, or so I thought, because apparently it was the same freaking boat, okay? I got completely lost and I went on a circle and I just found the same goddamn boat, all right? So at this point, I was like, you know what? Let me just go home because I'm pretty sure it's almost nighttime, which it was. And after a while, I finally found my island. On day 3, I started the day by making a chest, putting all of my items there, and then making a small farm right next to my sugarcane. Once I was done with that, I started preparing the area where I wanted to build my house, my starter house. And after collecting a lot of wood, I found some pigs, which they were not there before, right? I was stunned. I was like, where the heck did you all come from? Okay? Go back to where... No, I'm joking. After that, I decided that I didn't want any of this leaf stuff around my house, so I just spent the rest of the day collecting it and then putting it on the chest. Now, once I was done with that, I was looking at these pigs, right? I was like, they showed up in a very mysterious way. I'm afraid that they'll find a way to perish as well. So I made some animal pens, and my goal was to save all of the animals by putting them inside of the animal, okay? That way they're safe. I started with the chickens because those are easy, right? And then I spent an absurd amount of time actually trying to just push the animals in. This was really dumb. I am fully aware of that, but at the time I was like, this is a great idea, why not? The worst part is that eventually I was actually able to do it, which, it was terrible, was awful. It just enabled me, right? I was like, this is easy, see, I did it once, I can definitely do it again. So this is what I spent the whole day doing. And you may be like, so you wasted your entire day? No, he went in. Awful. So next day, I spent half of the day trying to do the exact same thing, but surprise, surprise, they didn't want to go in there. Like, what was I expecting, really? Eventually, I gave up, and I decided that I needed armor. I made a helmet, I made a chest plate, and I was like, oh, not enough for boots, so I need to go and collect iron. I was about to, you know, jump out of the island and go underwater caving again, but it's like, I really don't want to do that again. So I ended up deciding on making a mine shaft, and I decided to make it right there in the middle of the island. This makes no sense. And look, at first I was trying to make it look good, okay? But then at some point I was like, no, can't be bothered. It's just going to be a 1x1 tunnel. And then again, it got bigger, and then suddenly there was some sort of tunnel through the water. Anyway, at some point while I was doing this, I heard some noises, like, yeah, zombie noises, did you hear that? I was like, oh, there's some sort of cave around here. I need to find it, right? Well, here's the thing. Around here is not a very specific direction. I kept trying to follow the voice, but it was very chaotic. Look at the mind... Anyway, eventually I finally found the zombie. Now, as soon as I found him, I killed him, okay? Which apparently it was the first mob that I killed. I got 5 pieces of iron, which is amazing. And that was that. The mineshaft was tiny. There was literally nothing else there. So I went back to the surface. Once I was back, quote unquote, home, I was able to smelt all the iron that I collected. I made some new boots, which completed my set of armor. After that, I continued, for some reason, to try and push the sheep inside of the animal pen, which, guess what? It actually worked. I don't know, okay? I don't know. And I was about to try and do it again, but then I remembered I probably already have wheat, right? So I'm just going to collect some. And wild concept, use it to attract sheep. And you know what? You know what? It was actually much easier. Who would have guessed? Anyway, after that, I dumped all of my items in this double chest that I just made. And then I made a major decision. It was now finally time to start building our starter. It's you know what? It's actually not a starter house because I'm going to live on this house for the whole video, right? For the whole 100 days. So it's a house. Okay, I started building the house. Just the house. You know what I mean, right? Now, for the house, I was using cobblestone and oak. Mainly because those were the 2 blocks that I had the most, to be honest. But also, like, it's a very classic comment. You can never go wrong by putting those 2 blocks together. And the shape was pretty simple as well. But by the end of it, I was looking at it, I'm like, it needs something else. The wall of the house, it looked very empty and I didn't like it. So I decided that I was going to build a chimney, and for that I needed clay for bricks. It's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious. So while the clay was cooking? While I was cooking the clay? Yeah, I think that's how it is. While I was cooking the clay, I decided that I was going to go and grab deep slate. I collected deep slate until my pickaxe broke, which by the end of it, I got a stack and a half of it. I was like, pretty good. I went up and I made a chimney. Now, let me tell you something, okay? This chimney, I think it looked pretty cool, okay? And the roof was looking good as well. It was all coming together. Now, when I was finishing the main part of the roof, I went to look at it and you know what? I didn't like it. It needed something else, okay? So I went back to my chest and I was like, oh, spruce. I have spruce. Let me make some slabs and make the trim of the roof out of spruce. Yeah, that wasn't... I mean, it looks good. Don't get me wrong. It looks pretty good. But that wasn't the smartest move because by the end of it, I didn't have enough spruce. So I had to go back to the same shipwreck from before, right? At this point, I had been here 3 times, so I ended up just collecting everything, and I mean every single piece of spruce that existed on that shipwreck. When I went back, it was raining, it was nighttime, there were a lot of mobs, so I had to break my bed and move it to this tiny section of the island and sleep on the rain. Day 12, I finished the roof, and let me tell you something, I was really pleased. I am still very pleased with how it ended up looking, okay? I extended part of the roof to the side in order to make this very cozy balcony, and by the end of the day, I just grabbed my bed, I put it right there, and I slept for the first time inside of the house, okay? Well, I didn't really have doors, so I'm not sure if you can call it inside, but yeah. Eventually, after moving everything that was outside inside, I added a door and also a campfire right here because, you know, it was the chimney of the house, so it needed a campfire. And then I tried to organize every single item that I had, all right? I even added a door right here, and I made some sort of like improv basement where I stored all the items that I knew that I was never going to use. Day 14, I made a fishing rod and I went fishing. And let me tell you, I was pretty excited. I like fishing in Minecraft, but I spent like 5 minutes trying to fish something and I only got a tropical fish. So by the end of it, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. And by the way, these dolphins, they were very close to becoming fish, okay? Anyway, I now had enough food for at least a couple of days, so I was quite happy about that. At this point, I really didn't feel like building, so I decided that I was going to explore in order to find a shipwreck or something and collect iron, because I needed to finish my armor set. Eventually, I found a treasure map. I was like, you know what? Those actually usually have iron, so let's try and find it. On the way, I found another shipwreck with potatoes, which I was quite happy about, and then I realized something. I don't know how to read this. I just realized that. Like, I don't know how you read these maps. Ooh, there's color showing up on the map, okay. At some point, I found the place where the chest was, and after spending way too much time digging up sand, I ended up finding the treasure chest. Now, the iron that I was looking for, it was there, yeah. Some emeralds as well, and the heart of the sea that I never used. And by the end of this, it was already day 15. So I was like, you know what, let me just go home. On my way home, I found another shipwreck, and this shipwreck also had iron, so I was pretty good now. I was quickly able to get home and make some iron leggings. And these iron leggings, I was going to replace my leather ones with these ones, and it was going to complete my full iron armor set. I was pretty hyped about it. Now, at this point, I was pretty happy with the amount of protection that I had, so it was time to take care of the food situation, right? I kept running out of food, which led me to take action by making a huge farm, right? Especially now that I had potatoes. At some point though, it was nighttime and I ran out of dirt, so I had to go underwater and mine dirt out of the floor of the ocean floor, okay? And when I was finally done collecting dirt, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. No. There were so many creepers. I went home and I was like, please you can't sleep. So I stayed I was panicking at this point. I was like, maybe from here. And it ended up working somehow. But then next morning, guess what? They were still there because they don't burn. So I ended up having to, you know what? Like, why did it take so long? It's day 17 and I'm only now making a shield. Okay. Anyway, I was trying to get rid of one of them. And then the second one showed up, exploded, threw me off the island, almost ending this video, forcing me to essentially stop for a while because I had to take a deep breath, alright? That was scary. But once that was taken care of, the other ones were quite easy, so yeah. With that taken care of, I was thrilled that I could go back to making our farming area so I can finally take care of our food supply issue. I had to make a bucket, right? Because we needed water for the farms to work. And then I started planting every single seed we had, which was not a lot. It was like 23 seeds and like, 3 potatoes or something. But that was not going to stop me from making this look decent. So I started making a path. That's right. And I ended up connecting this path to the mine shaft. Now, when I got there, I was like, now I need to take care of this, right? Because it's not looking great. So I grabbed some oak, I grabbed some spruce, I grabbed some cobblestone and a side. And I mean, look at that. It looks so good. Look at that. A lantern. It looks freaking adorable, right? So then I made another batch of stone tools because I keep running out of iron. And at this point, I really wanted iron tools. But you know what? I'm nothing if a problem solver. That's what I do in life. So I went to the mine shaft and I mined in the mine shaft. Crazy. I went down the mine shaft and I found a cave, and I mean a giant cave. Once I was down there, I started lighting up the cave, right? And dealing with all the minor issues such as creepers, okay? And there were a lot of creepers, but I'm actually getting really good at this because look, I used that creeper to explode the other creeper. I'm getting great at this. I then found a lot of different ores such as lapis and iron, which, was the main point. And I eventually even found diamonds, which ended up just being 1 diamond because, of course, right? I killed a zombie, which gave me a carrot, all right? And then I found another diamond. And with that, I was completely done. I had 2 diamonds and a carrot. I'm good. We don't need to go to the mine shaft anymore, right? So I tried to sleep for the night. Couldn't, obviously. And eventually I realized that I could break the bed and place it somewhere else. That's why the bed is there now, okay? Next day, my storage was completely full, okay? And I needed a better way to get to my basement, so I made that sort of like opening right there. I placed some ladders, and then I extended the whole storage. I placed a lot of chests, and I moved all my items downstairs. To be honest, it ended up taking the whole day, but it was completely worth it. On day 22, I decided that I was going to have a chill day.
Daddy, chill.
I started by taking care of my farm, and then proceeded to make my first batch of bread. After that, I decided to give wheat to my sheep in order to increase their numbers in this already overpopulated animal pen. And since I was having a relaxing day, I decided to remove all of this leaf crap out of my island. I ended up not being able to remove all of it by the end of the day, so I just threw it in the chest. Next day, I went down the mineshaft. I needed coal, and I joke you not, I spent 10 minutes trying to look for coal. I couldn't find any, alright? No coal. But guess what? I found a mob spawner. Like the completely opposite of what I wanted. And after I secured the area, I looked at the chests, and they had coal. Both of them. This was the only way I could find coal. The game was literally mocking me. And by the way, this spawner, you will never see it again. 10 minutes later, I found a big lump of it, which solved all my problems. Since I was already underground and I could now make a ton of torches, I decided I wanted diamonds. And after struggling to find them on the walls of the cavern, I decided to strip mine. Soon after I started this very tedious process, I was surprised by not one diamond, but five different diamonds. Unfortunately, that was all I got. And eventually my pickaxe broke, so I went back to the surface. It was now day 25, and I'd been able to collect an astonishing amount of 7 diamonds in total. Now, with these diamonds, I decided to make tools. And I know some of you might be asking, why? It's a hardcore video, you should be prioritizing armor. And my friends, that is a valid point, one that I did not think of. For you see, I was too focused on my goal of upgrading my island. With that out of the way, I decided to perform a very thrilling, exciting task, that being collecting moss. After spending all of my bone meal, I was able to get almost a stack of moss, which I used to make mossy cobblestone. With this mossy cobblestone, I decided to decorate my farming area a little bit more, and to be honest, I really do like the way it ended up looking. I felt like it had been upgraded to a much higher level. I don't know what I'm talking about. But you see, I felt like I needed something else. There was something missing. So I settled on the idea of building a windmill. I hate building windmills. I do not understand why I decided to do this, okay? And to be honest, it took a while. I spent 2 days building this windmill, and by the end of it, I wasn't even able to finish it because it started raining, and I despise rain in Minecraft. I couldn't see what I was doing properly, and so annoying. So basically, I ended up just spending the rest of the day taking care of my animals, farms, and whatever. Now, the next section of this video is just bizarre, honestly. So I was breaking eggs, as one does, and I got 5 chickens from 5 eggs. I was like, what? Okay, right, fine. And so after I moved them inside the pen, I got another egg that I didn't even notice. I was like, okay, another chicken. What is happening? You know what? I'm not even going to question. I'm just going to move the chicken inside the pen again. And I got more eggs, which got, bruh. If someone is a someone who deals with statistics and probability, tell me what's the chance of that happening, because, bruh, you know? Anyway, after using leaves to get to the top of the windmill, I was able to spend the entirety of the rest of the day, building the windmill. Next day, while deciding how to build the roof, I settled on the idea of using the same exact blocks that I did for the starter house, which meant that I needed spruce. Again. After sailing for a while, I was able to find another shipwreck, which I promptly appropriated. But unfortunately, this was not enough. Soon after this, I found a geode while looking for another shipwreck. And let me tell you, I wasted no time in collecting as much calcite as I could, since I was going to need it very soon. Once I was done with that, I found another shipwreck, and by the way, here's a time-lapse of basically what I do to every single shipwreck I find, okay? It's a process, I guess. And then I went home, or I tried to go home, but I got lost. While getting lost, I found a mushroom island. Right? And in this island, I found firefly bushes. I had never seen these bushes before, so I was beyond excited. Okay, I can't even describe how excited I was. So I collected as many as I could, and then I went home. Ooh, wait. I'll come back later. Can't be bothered right now. Once I finally arrived, there was only one thing on my mind. And no, it was not the roof of that damn windmill, alright? It was the firefly. I placed them everywhere, okay? And let me tell you, I was not disappointed. Next day, I went back to building. I started by making the roof out of spruce and deep slate, and once that was done, I started on the blades of the windmill. Unfortunately, I did not have the necessary materials to finish it. So, next day, after staring at this unfinished windmill for far too long, I went home and I made a lot of white concrete powder. I then turned half of it into concrete blocks, which is always a fun process. And once I was finished, I grabbed some wool, I grabbed some calcite, and I started building. Honestly, I nailed it! At the end of it, I was quite happy with the final result. And then I decided that I was going to farm, and that's all I did, I farmed. Now, next day, I did the exact same thing. Yeah, I farmed. It was quite therapeutical for me, actually. I quite enjoyed doing that. Once I was done with that, though, I had a lot of seeds. A lot. So I decided that I was going to make a composter and put it inside the windmill. I also placed the barrel and the chest for storage. I dumped all of my seed there, and then I went home. I went home because there was one thing that I needed to do, and that thing was replacing this whole floor with spruce slabs. Why slabs? Well, because if I replace it with slabs, then I will have a lot more space underneath it for more chests. Feeling very inspired after replacing the whole floor, I decided that it was time to decorate my house. I started by making some sort of shelf on the crafting kitchen area of the house, a table right next to the door, and then I decided that I needed to make it a little bit more cozy, especially on the bedroom side. For that, I started by replacing the torch with a lantern, obviously, and then I added carpet. You always need carpet if you want to make your house more cozy, okay? After that, I replaced my beds with red beds because I don't know, I feel like red beds are the right beds. It just has to be red, okay? Anyway, once I was done with that, I decided that I needed to put armor stands here, and it was a whole process, okay? I had to break part of my roof to place them there. It was annoying, to be honest. Since I was feeling inspired, I guess, I decided that it was time to upgrade the decorations outside of my house as well. And I started by placing some sort of vine going up the walls. I added a lamppost, which looks great. Okay, and then after that I added some firewood for the chimney or something, I don't know. Once that was done, I guess my quote-unquote inspiration ended because I just placed fences for the rest of the day. And it was now day 40. Now, I was tired of building, okay, so I just went down the mine shaft and I found the place where I was mining for diamonds. What is it called? The strip mining place area, whatever. I extended it. I made it very professional looking. All right, look at this. It looks so cool. And then I spent the next 4 days, and I'm not joking, 4 days strip mining for diamonds. The reason why I did this was because I eventually realized that I needed armor, okay? It was day 40, and I still had iron armor, which is not great. Now, by the end of these 4 days, my inventory was so full, I couldn't even pick up the blocks I was getting, okay? And the chest that I placed here was also completely full. But I had a total of 35 diamonds. So I just grabbed everything I could and I went back to the surface. Once I was back, I dumped all of the extra blocks into my chests. And then, I did something great. I made myself, that's right, you guessed it, a full diamond armor set. Words cannot describe how freaking hyped I was, okay? This is probably the first time I made this in hardcore. Look at that. Look at this excitement right there. It's, bruh. I then decided, you know what? My iron armor, I'm going to display it right there. So, yeah. I then farmed for a stupid amount of time, okay? And right after that, I decided, you know what? It's time to decorate. I'm going to make coarse dirt and I'm going to decorate my paths with coarse dirt, because I'm a builder. I spent the entire day doing this. And by the way, I'm not joking. I spent the entire day doing this. To be honest, by the end of it, I was actually quite happy with it. And in my opinion, it really did make a difference. You know, it looks a lot more vibey right now. Once I was done with that, though, I was looking at the beach right next to it, right? I was like, this boat right here looks very out of place. It needs a dock. Obviously, I needed to collect wood for the dock, right? So I collected a lot of oak, I planted a lot of saplings, and while I was doing that, okay, I found these guys right there. I was like, let me take care of them. I tried to make them so they would kill the leader or whatever, and then my shield broke. Okay, I was, okay, alright. So after I made a new shield, I went back, they killed their leader, then I killed them, and after that I'm gonna never use this. I never used this, okay? And I was like, oh, there's a wandering trader. Let me save him. He's so wonderful. Love them. Please be kind to me and have a good trade. Oh, please, please. No. Obviously not. It's trash. So I still bought the acacia sapling because I was like, maybe I'll use this. And some beetroot seeds because, I don't know, whatever. I got the leads, and then I moved both llamas. They were now my friends, my besties. I love them now. They're my new partners in crime, alright? I named them Spit and Ball. And yeah, after that I just started making the docks. The design was nothing special, but to be honest, I really do enjoy the final result. I feel like it ended up looking really nice. It's simple, but you know what? Sometimes simple is the best way to go. You don't really need to exaggerate and add a lot of details for something to look good. Next day, I decided to fight an Enderman. I saw it, and I was like, let me kill it. Okay, I'm only on day 48. Why don't I just risk it all? Fortunately, I killed it, right? It was pretty easy. I got a grass block, and an Ender Pearl. Never really used any of them, but glad to have them, I guess. Anyway, I then decided that I would spend the rest of the day adding like slabs around my island in order to actually make the paths functional. And once I was done with that, I added some lanterns to my docks. Now, you might be thinking, these docks, they're pretty much done. What else can he do, right? Like, what else could Dio possibly just like start doing suddenly? Well, you know, I went to the back of the island. I was like, I'm feeling bad. The back of the island is pretty much empty, so I might as well just add another dock there. Does that make sense to you? I guess I just really liked how the docks looked on the other side, so I might as well just repeat it on the back of the island. You know, like, whatever. It looks good, that's what matters. On day 52, I decided that we needed to start worrying about enchanting. We're halfway through the 100 days, so we need to start getting ready to be able to, like, enchant our armor and tools and whatever. And then I went to the side of the windmill, and I started making an animal pen. You might be wondering, what? Another one? Why? Well, this might shock you, but we need leather in order to make books, and you need books in order to make bookshelves, and need books. You get what I mean, right? You've seen these videos before. You've played Minecraft. We need books. For that we need leather, and for that we need cows. So I grabbed one of the leads from my llama friends, Speed and Ball, and then I went looking for the Mushroom Island. Okay? Mushroom Island? Mushroom Island? I actually don't remember how it's called. Whatever. I went looking for the island. On my way there, okay, I found one of these underwater nether portals, and it didn't really have anything besides a bell, lodestones, and whatever. So I grabbed all of it. Once I was done with that, again, I went looking for the island, and guess what? I found I found the island, okay? I got there, like, grabbed the cow, great. Was very hyped about it. I used the wheat to attract the other one, and then with the lead, I was like, 2 cows, great, let's go freaking back, okay? Unfortunately, when I got back home, it was already nighttime, so it was actually quite annoying. I had to put the other cow on the boat as well and sleep through the night because, you know, I was not going to go through the whole process of moving animals with creepers and stuff around, okay? Anyway, next day, I finally moved the cows inside of the animal pen, and guess what? I even gave them a little bit of wheat. A new cow! Yeah, so I was really hyped. Unfortunately, what happened next, it wasn't really a happy moment, okay? I was going back to give the lead back to Spit, okay? But it was gone. I think it was Spit. It might have been Ball. I didn't really memorize which one was who, but, you know, besides the point. One of them was gone. And apparently it was because I didn't really befriend them properly. So I made sure I befriended Ball, okay? And at least we'll have one of them forever. Feeling devastated, alright? I spent some time farming because that's kind of like a stress relief for me. And then I grabbed the items that I got from the Nether portal, and I decided to decorate my base with them. I placed the bell right next to my door. I also placed the lodestone next to the mineshaft, which I believe it looks pretty good there. And then I made a compass. I made it thinking, you know what, I'll place it on the chest next to the lodestone, alright? And I'll grab it every time I need to go somewhere, and that way I will never again get lost. Next day, it was raining, and we all know how I feel about that, so I decided to go underground and explore the huge cave system that I'd found before, right? Once I started doing that, I found a lot of diamonds. Like, a lot of them. I started wondering if strip mining was actually a good... like, I should have just done this from the beginning, right? I also found some iron, and when I was collecting this iron, I noticed another mine shaft, okay? I was like, yes, I need this, because maybe I'll find something else here. It's much deeper than the other mine shaft, so you never know. I found a spawner, a spider spawner. I was like, oh, string, yeah, why not? And then I was like, oh, I need to, like, light up the whole area, right? And then a baby zombie showed up. I was like, oh, okay. It's fine, I can do this. It's just one baby zombie. Like, seconds later, another one shows up. And okay, you know what? Run. And then three. There are three. So I just ran for my life, and fortunately they got stuck on the waterfall. And yeah, at that moment I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. When suddenly something happened, okay? Oh, more zombies. Another baby zombie, right? Which I promptly killed. It was pretty easy because it was only one, okay? And then I was going to start killing this guy, and I was like, wait. It's a zombie villager. I could heal him, you know? So I made a crafting table. With that crafting table, I made a boat. And with that boat, I was like, yeah, stay here. All right, buddy? Just stay here, okay? I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to go to the surface. I'm going to grab a name tag. That way, you will not despawn. So I made an anvil, and I went looking for my name tags. Problem, though. I didn't have any. So I placed my anvil right there, right next to the mineshaft. And then I went fishing, because how else do you get a name tag? Truly, I was like, well, okay, I'll just fish one. But there was an issue, right? After I fished a couple of fish, that's a sentence. After I fished a couple of fish, I was like, wait, he might despawn while I'm doing this. So I went downstairs. I went to the cavern, I gave him a helmet, and then I dragged him to the surface with me. With this, everything seemed to be going according to plan, until I tried to put him in the basement, and look, for some reason, balls started spitting on him. I couldn't really stop it. I tried putting myself in between them, but it wasn't working, so I was like, just stop, please spit on me, not him. But he terminated Paul. I had no words. I dragged him into the basement of the house, and I just left. Honestly, I couldn't deal with this. It was too much for me. Okay, I needed to be out of there. So yeah, I went fishing because I still needed the name tag. All right. So I went to the dock and I started fishing. Now, obviously, it started raining because that's my life. And then I fished for the whole day, and the whole day. By the end of it, I didn't really have the name tag, so I went to bed, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, so I had to grab my bed and sleep on the rain outside. Next day I went fishing, and I was feeling a lot more confident, you know? Today I was going to fish my name tag. Today! Yes, definitely today. And guess what happened? I didn't really... I didn't get it. Okay, so next day I went fishing again, and I didn't get a name tag, but I got a fishing rod with a lot of the sea too, which is quite nice. So I combined it with my fishing rod, okay, and then I called it. Don't think too much about it, it's fine. And after fishing like 3 or 4 things, I got a name tag! Woo! I got a name tag! Well, let's go! So, I went to the anvil. Sorry, I decided to call our friend Pain for obvious reasons, right? And now, Pain will never leave us. So then I was like, okay, I need to heal Pain. And for that, we need potions. Now, to make potions, we need to go to the Nether, which means that we need obsidian. I was going to go down the mineshaft and find some sort of like lava source and make obsidian. But then I was like, you know what? I have seen several Nether portals in the ocean. So I'm just going to go grab obsidian from one of those. I found one, and then I spent an absurd amount of time collecting obsidian, which, you know, is always like... really tedious task, but I got it. And as soon as I was done, I went home. Unfortunately, it was already nighttime, so I decided I'm going to sleep through the night. I'm not going to try and build the portal during nighttime, but I couldn't. I completely forgot that I couldn't sleep at home. So once again, I had to sleep outside. Yeah. So next day, I was finally ready to go to the Nether. I tried to improvise the Nether portal design with stone bricks, but after placing a few blocks, I ended up giving up. And I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna go to the Nether, and later on, I'll deal with this. Because at that moment, I really didn't feel like building, okay? So there I went, completely ready to face the Nether. Okay, fortress. I need to find a fortress. Where the heck am I going to find it? Ooh. Okay, be right back. I completely forgot about this. God damn it. Once I was back in the Nether, I spent most of my time exploring, building bridges, and killing mobs. By the way, did you know that now you get a music disc whenever you kill gas? Yeah, I didn't know either. Anyway, eventually, when I was exploring, right, I found a fortress in the distance. And let me tell you, I intended to get there, okay? So I built more bridges, right, there was a lot of bridges, but after a while, I was finally able to set foot on this damn fortress. Okay, it took a while, but I got there. Now, after exploring this area for way too long, I was finally able to find some blazes. I killed some, I got some blaze rods, it was chill, alright, I didn't almost die. And once I had enough, I went exploring to find the last material I needed, nether warts. And I found it, okay? After way too long, but I found it. I then felt a little bit surrounded. I don't know if you can hear the mob sounds, right? I was like, no, I'm out of here. I really don't want to keep risking it, all right? I'm on day 60 something. I really don't want to stay here. So I went home quickly and safely. Is that a word? Safely? Whatever. And what did I do? I made a brewing stand. And after spending like 5 minutes looking the recipe for the actual potion, all right, I did it. I made the potion. I was determined in healing pain because I was tired of this whole thing. So I threw a potion at him, gave him an apple, as one does, right? And then I stayed there with him the whole freaking night until he was healed. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Okay. Day 63, I had lunch in real life and I completely forgot to close the game, so I wasted the whole day. Yeah, moving on, day 64, I now had a villager, which meant that I needed to place that villager somewhere. And I decided that I was going to make a market stall for my villager. For that, I needed red wool. So, you know, I dyed some sheep and then I collected some wool. After that, I collected some mud because I wanted that mud to make mud bricks. You'll see why in a bit, don't worry. Next day, I decided that I wanted to make the market stall where I had my animal pens. So I had to move all of my animals from the old animal pens to new animal pens, okay? So I made a huge sheep area, and I also moved the pigs with the sheep, because why the heck not? And once I was done with that, I moved the chickens to a much smaller area because I really do not care about chickens. Anyway, moving on. I then proceeded to remove the rest of the old animal pens, and once I was done with that, I started with the market stall. For the market stall, I wanted to use spruce and oak. This design is actually quite simple. A while ago, I even made a free blueprint tutorial that you can find on my Patreon, alright? You don't really have to pay anything, you can just join as a free member and get it. So, yeah. I usually use mangrove wood for this market stall, but because I didn't have any, I ended up using brick slabs. It still looks good, but you know, if you can, you should definitely use mangrove wood. Anyway, once I was done with that on day 67, I decided that I actually wanted to make more market stalls because one single market stall looked quite depressing, you know? I just needed more. So I ended up building 2 more market stalls. And don't get me wrong, okay? They ended up looking really good, if I may say so myself. I even added stuff around it. So like, for example, chests and barrels and, I don't know, hay bales. I made the path more cozy and stuff. I added coarse dirt. I even added a lamppost, which that's like, you know, peak decoration. So, yeah, it ended up looking really good. But this meant that I needed more than one villager. Okay? Thing is, I was not ready. I was still not prepared to go through the whole zombie villager thing again, okay? So I ended up trying to do other stuff around the island, and that's when I found another trading villager, wandering trader, that's the name. And again, surprise, surprise, he didn't really have anything good. I ended up just buying like the dry grass because I had never seen that before, and I bought some drip leaf that I never used. I also never used the dry grass, but whatever, besides the point. And then I stole the llamas again, but I didn't name them this time because why bother? You know? So yeah, by the way, I let him be because, you know, I'm an overall nice guy. And after that, I fed the cows again because do not forget, we are still trying to get bookshelves for our enchanting area. Now, for the next 6 days, I was underground looking for another zombie villager. And I found a lot of zombies, none of them a zombie villager, okay? I dealt with a lot of them. I don't even know how many, you know, I lost count. And again, I spent 6 days underground, so I found creepers, I gathered a lot of different ores from copper to iron to whatever, right? I even found a spider spawner that... The loot was just disgusting, to be honest. But you know what? You gotta move on. So I spent a lot, and I mean a lot of time underground until I found this skeleton, which I tried to attract it to a more plain area where I could more easily fight it, right? And then I found a zombie villager. I was so freaking hyped, alright? I'd spent so much time down here, so I started going up this thing. And then I found a creeper, okay? And then a spider. And then they got me stuck on the stupid corner, and the creeper exploded on top of the zombie villager. And then a spider, and there was another creeper, and the stupid skeleton was still not dead. I was... Honestly, I don't even know. I think I was probably just like, I don't know, processing the fact that the new zombie villager had just been killed, which meant that I needed to spend a lot more time underground looking for another one, okay? And that's precisely what I did. I was not going to leave without another zombie villager, okay? I also found like a lot of diamonds when I was caving. I was actually a lot. So at least I you know, I got diamonds. That's always good. I also found a slime randomly. I was like, okay, well, now I have slime balls. By the way, I never used them again. There's a lot of stuff that I got during these 100 days that I never used, but whatever. After a while, I ran out of food. I only had 6 potatoes left, and that was not enough. So I decided that I was going to go back up, grab some food, and come back down. And right when I was about to leave, a zombie villager shows up. After an excruciating like 2 hours or something, I finally found him, and he literally fell out of the sky. Anyway, after this, the whole process was pretty much standard, right? I grabbed the boat, I put him inside of the boat, and since he had leather armor, I was like, you know what, I can leave you there. I'm going to grab the potion, an apple, give them to you. And yeah, while you are healing, healing sound, see? I was like, you know what? I'm going to fish for a name tag. I can leave you there. It's fine. You have leather armor. I'm going to fish for a name tag. And this is what happened next. No, 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 no. Don't, no, I have no block. Oh, no. Okay, okay. Chill. Wait. Oh my god, 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 oh my god. After contemplating throwing myself in the ocean for a while, I made myself feel better by doing this, which to be honest actually made me feel quite better. And then I made a diamond sword, okay, and I went back to the mines. Now I decided that I wasn't going to make a single cut during this next clip, so people wouldn't be YouTube. I didn't, bruh, I'm still stunned. All right, this is probably the luckiest thing that happened during the entire video. Anyway, you can also see my wonderful mineshaft. Yeah, my wonderful tunneling skills are unquestionable, right? And once I finally got to the mineshaft, here's what happened, okay? I was like, oh, let's go, finally, I'm here. What will we have? A zombie villager. Immediately, all right? I didn't have to spend 6 days down here again. I was hyped. I gave him the iron element because I was like, not going to trust you. And oh, look how excited I was. And then I dragged him outside of the mine shaft. I then made him a dirt roof, or whatever you want to call it. You know, like I was like, please don't burn. Just don't burn, okay? And then I gave him the potion, I gave him the apple, and I went fishing for the name tag again. This whole name tag business was really annoying, but you know, it had to be done. I kept checking on him, by the way. I was like, not on my watch again. And then he finally healed. Just the thought of having 2 villagers that could not burn. That was beyond exciting for me. And then I tried this whole new thing of putting a lead on a boat, and it's so freaking useful. Like, how did they not do this sooner? I mean, it's a bit junky. It's kind of funny. Look. Whoop. But yeah, it's very useful. And then I put it in the basement. So now I had two people on my basement. And then I went again fishing for the name tag. I really wanted this name tag, okay? By the end of the day, I still didn't have a name tag. I got another fishing rod with lure too. It was actually quite useful. I combined it with my fishing rod, so now I had Luck of the Sea 2 and lure 2. But yeah, no name tag. So I spent the entire next day doing the same exact thing. And no name tag, but I had 4 saddles. Why? I then spent the entire next day doing the exact same thing, and right when I was checking my inventory and honestly about to give up on this whole thing, it finally happened. Name tag. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm going to name him Lucky. Yeah, that's right, because, like, okay, she didn't burn everyone, all right? I'm so lucky. Okay, so here, Lucky, and Bane. Stay alive. I stay alive. Next day, I realized that I needed a place for them. And, sorry. And I thought, why not the windmill? You know, like, maybe I'll just make another floor and I'll put them up there. Why not, right? So I made the second floor and then I went up there. I was like, it's quite small. It's, you know, there's not enough space for them here. So I ended up giving up on that and and I was like, you know, I'll change the floor here while I think of something else. And once I was finished, I was like, you know what? Why don't I make a room underground for them, okay? It's perfectly normal, like, why not? So I did that. I started another room, and it looks a little bit like a dungeon thing. It's not a dungeon, okay? It just looks like one. So I decided, you know what? I can fix it. I can just make it look like an actual cozy room. I'll make bunk beds and I'll throw chests and barrels and stuff. And, you know, by the end of it, it will look perfect. It will look better than my house, okay? I even threw some carpet in. I was like, yes. And the giant painting. Like, at this point, I really don't think anyone can call this a dungeon, right? It's just an underground room, extremely well decorated, that they cannot escape from. I then started moving the villagers by the end of the day, which was not a smart idea, all right? I was like, oh, I should have done this sooner, or at least left it for the next day. But no, like, at the end of the day, that's when I'm going to do this. And this actually took a while. This is not easy. It looks kind of easy, but the lead keeps breaking, and it's kind of annoying sometimes. But after a couple of tries, I was finally able to drag Lucky inside of the windmill, and then I was like, nope, it's too late for the second one. It's so late to drag Pain in here, all right? It would be quite painful. So I closed the walls, and then I was like, oh, how am I going to move them in? Because ladders will not work, right? So I ended up breaking the ceiling / floor, okay? And I just dropped them in. Easy, done. Yeah, Lucky seemed to enjoy the room quite a lot. So see, they loved that corner for sure. So yeah, that was day 84. Next day, I went through this exact same process with Bane as well. And then I tried to give them baked potatoes. I was like, oh, look here, have some food, please. Enjoy your time together and you get it. But they didn't like it. They didn't like baked potatoes, but they enjoyed the raw ones, all right? And I was like, oh, you know what? I don't care. Anyway, just do your thing. I'm going to go. And I farmed for a while because, you know, if they want raw food, I'll give them raw. So that's what I did. I grabbed a lot of food, and then because I didn't want to interrupt them, I made a feeding hole, which again, perfectly normal. And then I dropped a ton of food. Everything I got from the farms, I dropped in there. Next day, there were still no children, right? And I saw somewhere online that they wanted a bell. So I went and I grabbed my bell reluctantly, all right, because I really liked the bell. I dropped it in and I was like, please work, please work. Heart started to show up. I was like, yes, let's go, you can do this. Nothing freaking happened. At this point, I was starting to worry, right? So I ended up like destroying the bunk beds because I didn't know, all right? I couldn't figure it out. And I thought, maybe they are too dumb to understand what a bunk bed is. And guess what? It actually worked. That was the actual issue. They don't like nice things. Anyway, next day when I came to visit, there was already another child, which meant that I could now start moving them. I started by once again deleting the ceiling/floor of the windmill and then making a temporary staircase that they could use to go up. After getting both parents to go up the staircase, I quickly fixed the floor ceiling and then I was ready to start moving them into the market stalls. Now, this whole process took too long, to be honest, but after a while I was finally able to put them in their individual market stalls, okay? And once I was done with that, this was so painful that I was like, you know what, I gotta make sure that the island is completely spawn-proof. So I spent the rest of the day just placing torches everywhere. Now, next day, day 88, I started my morning by feeding the children through the feeding hole, and once all of the children in the basement of the windmill were fed, I then went outside and fed all of the cows. Now, this is important. Why did I do this? Because I wanted to finally start gathering some leather in order to get our enchanting setup. However, while I was doing this, while I was making some books in order to then convert them into bookshelves, I noticed that I could make a lectern, okay? And when I saw that, I was like, wait, if I'm not mistaken, librarians, they sell bookshelves, which means that I really don't need to make bookshelves myself. I can just buy them. So now it was only a matter of getting a good trade. So I had to basically break this lectern too many freaking times, okay? And by the end of the day, I really didn't have the trade that I wanted. So I went to bed and I cried to sleep. On day 89, I did the exact same thing. Okay, so we can just skip this one. And then on day 90, I finally got a good trade. Now, I wanted a mending book, okay? But once I got Fortune 3 after 3 days, I was like, good enough. With this trade locked, I now needed emeralds in order to buy bookshelves. So I decided, you know what, Pain? You're going to be a Fletcher, that's right. You're going to sell sticks for a living. Well, no, actually, technically he's buying sticks for a living. That's what you freaking get. Anyway, everything seemed to be going according to plan, except the fact that I didn't really have enough wood to make sticks. So, I had an idea. I'm going to go to the Nether, and I'm going to collect bone blocks. That way I can convert them into bone meal and then grow my own sticks. I also found this new thing. This is a dry ghast. I ended up getting it, but you know, I didn't really know what to do with this. Anyway, I collected a lot of bone blocks and then I went home. And once I got home, it was already nighttime, so I ended up sleeping. But after I slept, I started mass producing sticks. And once I got all of those sticks, what did I do? I sold them for a crap load of emeralds. I'm rich. I'm rich. Oh, I can't buy anymore. Anyway, thank you. You, give me all those bookshelves. Lucky. That's 16! Let's fucking go! Okay, alright. Now, where the heck am I going to build this? At this point, I had filled most of the available space on my island with some sort of build. However, I then remembered that there was this very awkward space at the end of my second dock, which, after taking a closer look, I believed that it was perfect for a sort of like mysterious enchanting cavern of sorts. To be honest, like, I was winging it, alright? I'm not even going to try and pretend that, oh yeah, look, I had everything planned. No, I threw all of this together and then I was like, oh, I need to go and actually grab stuff to decorate this cavern. So I went to the mineshaft, I grabbed some cobwebs, I also made a lot of items, like a lot of stuff. And once I was done with that, I went back and I was like, it's not big enough. I don't actually have space to put all the crap that I just made, alright? So I had to extend the cavern. And after placing a lot of stuff in this cavern, right, I was like, you know what I need? I need to texture the walls. I need to, like, make it so it's not just blocks of stone. But by the end of it, the cavern looked amazing. And that's a hill I will die on, alright? Anyway, after spending a while deciding which tool or piece of armor to enchant, I ended up picking my sword, which, unfortunately, didn't give me anything good, but it is what it is. I now only had 7 days left, which reminded me that I want to build something very specific. So I gathered a lot of wool, I went and gathered a lot more wood from shipwrecks and calcite. Now, you might be wondering, what is he exactly going to build? Well, I want to build a lighthouse right here in the corner of the island. I already had a pretty good idea of how this build was going to look, so it was quite easy for me to start. For the base of the build, I went with deep slate and barrels, and once I was done with that, I started with the walls. The walls were made out of calcite, diorite, birch. I also used red wool because I wanted that classic lighthouse look. And finally, once I reached the top, I made a floor out of oak slabs. Now, there was an issue. I didn't have a way to go down, and I was like, oh, maybe a water bucket. I forgot to bring a water bucket with me, okay? So I ended up having to jump out of the lighthouse. And once I was down there, I was like, you know what? I want to make the roof out of copper blocks. That's right. So I made a ton of copper blocks. I thought I had a lot more copper. Apparently, I only had enough for 13 copper blocks, right? And then I was like, I want them green. So I'm going to oxidize the blocks, right? I scattered them across the beach, and I was like, oh, I'm going to farm through the night until they're, green, oxidized. Yeah, next day, still the exact same. So I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'll just do it again. I'll just do something. I don't know. I'm going to decorate the windmill. At this point, I was like, why the heck not? It's not like I have anything else to do. So I just threw a bunch of hay bales and pumpkins in here. And it was like, done. I also put a chest there so I could, store more hay bales there. I don't know. After that, I decided I was going to decorate the island. I threw a bunch of barrels there. Then I went to the windmill. I threw a bunch of hay bales there. I was like, oh, maybe it's been 2 days. Let me see. Oh, still the freaking same. You know what? I ain't waiting. I don't care anymore. I collected the copper, I went up the lighthouse, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this out of normal copper, because I can't be bothered. It takes an absurd amount of time to oxidize copper. I then asked a friend of mine, and I was told that it takes, on average, 22 days for copper to oxidize. I was like, I can't... You're joking. That's just plain dumb, to be honest. But anyway, once I was finally done with the roof of the lighthouse, which, by the way, I think it actually looks kind of good with normal copper, I looked down and I noticed that the copper that I had left there, it started oxidizing. This game is literally mocking me, okay? I then decided that I needed light blocks on top of the lighthouse because it just makes sense. And I made glowstone, all right? I put a ton of glowstone there and I think it looks awesome. Alright, with only 3 days left, it was now time for me to panic and start to fill in all of the empty spaces around my island. And I started with this one right here. Now, when I said that I didn't have a plan and that I was panicking, it was not a lie, alright? I didn't know what I was doing, so I ended up just getting a ton of flowers, and I placed them all over the place, alright? And then after that, I was like, you know what? Let's do the exact same thing between the windmill and the lighthouse, because why not? I also threw some trees in there because it was too many flowers. I needed something else, so trees. And after that, I was like, you know what we need? We need more paths. That's right, there's still a very empty space right here. We need to make it look pretty and cozy. So a bench and a lamppost. But here's the thing, that was not the only path I made. I also made a path to the portal. And do you remember when I was kind of like, oh, let's decorate the portal later? I freaking did it. That's right. I ended up going with a very simple design. It is kind of like an underwater portal kind of vibe. But honestly, it does the job. It looks good, and that's all that matters. And with that, we are on day 100, okay? So, last minute details, last minute decorations, last minute whatever. I very quickly made an oxidizing workstation right next to my house, and once I was done with that, I went to the lighthouse and I decided that this path, this thing right here, looked bad. So it was time for an upgrade, and that's exactly what I did, and you cannot tell me otherwise. I then added a door to the lighthouse because, those are needed, and with this, there was only one thing left to do, to remove all of this live out of my island, which ironically was the first thing that I did during this 100 days. So, it was kind of like a full circle moment type of stuff, right? And yeah, after that, I slept for the last time on my bed. Bruh, it's finally over. It's over. It's over. Yeah, somehow I survived the whole thing. It's impressive, actually. But let's take a closer look, right? I truly, really like how everything fits in together. It's so cozy, so, I don't know, I want to eat it. Yeah, even the lighthouse, I was quite afraid of building this one because, it was a last minute thing, but it ended up looking really good. And I just want to say thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hype the video, whatever that is. And thank you so much to every single Patreon who helps me make these videos. Look at them! Look! Aren't they lovely? I love all of them. All of them. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Watch this video next.